Israel has launched a series of attacks in Gaza. This is despite a U.S. brokered ceasefire with Hamas, which came into effect in October of last year. At least 12 Palestinians, including several children, have been killed overnight. The pictures that you are looking at right now show some Palestinian children arriving at the hospital and the obvious emotion of those who are receiving those young bodies. So those Israeli attacks targeted at least two areas of the Strip, including Gaza City and El Mawasi. So the yellow line that you see on the map there is the line that Israeli forces withdrew to under phase one of the ceasefire. These are the latest pictures from the last hour of those Israeli airstrikes in El Mawasi. You can see smoke rising from where Palestinians are sheltering in tents in the south of the Strip, and a reminder that, of course, this is the area that Israel has said throughout the course of the war is a safe zone for people to go to. You are also now looking at the aftermath. These are live pictures from Gaza City, the aftermath of that strike. And what you can see is people cleaning up the street there. You can see a huge crater in the concrete there, and people making sense of what exactly took place there. And this is what people said in the aftermath of that strike.
Drones and a combat chopper were in the area. They were flying at a dangerously low level. At 4 a.m., a residential flat here was hit while a family and children were still inside. No prior warning was given. There is nothing children could have ever done to deserve being killed.
All right, Hani Mahmoud is live for us in Gaza City. So, Hani, correct me if I'm wrong. You have one attack that took place in Gaza City. You have one in Rafah in the Israeli-controlled area, and then you have this attack in El Mawasi. What else do we know?
Well, so far, these attacks are everywhere, and they don't seem to be coming to an end anytime soon. In fact, there is just a confirmed line from central area, a building, a facility. It's a public facility that's being threatened by the Israeli military. It is located in the middle of what later became, throughout the course of the past 2 years, a market area, quite busy at this time of the day, as many of the displaced Palestinians still sheltering in that area, just causing mayhem, a sense of fear, casting fear and panic among displaced Palestinians as well as the residents of Deir al-Balah city. This is the latest that we have from central area. But over the past of the several hours, the Israeli military carried out several attacks across the Gaza Strip. In Jabalia and here in Gaza City were two attacks. One of them is quite deadly and not far from the area where we're reporting from. It's a residential flat that was targeted about 4 a.m. in the morning, where a woman and her children were inside sleeping when the attack happened, killing all of them, injuring many of the people who were inside the building. Further south, a tent that was targeted by a drone strike, killing a grandfather, his children, and his grandchildren, all in single attacks. Just in the past hour, also an attack that targeted a facility that turned into more of an admin facility managing the affairs of one of the displacement sites for displaced people in the central area, in the city of Khan Yunis, just again causing more fear and panic among displaced families in that area.
It's hard to find good news from the Gaza Strip, but if there is a tiny sliver, it is that the Rafah crossing in the south of the Strip is supposed to open tomorrow under phase 2 of this ceasefire agreement. We know from your reporting there from Gaza that there are all kinds of restrictions on who can come and who can leave the Strip. But please correct me if I'm wrong, there are still restrictions on aid getting in. Why?
Well, the reopening is limited to people, no aid at scale. The current plan focuses on pedestrian movement, and that does not translate automatically into trucks, fuel, medical supplies entering freely. Let's keep in mind the Israeli military bluntly made it clear that any progress to later phases of the ceasefire, including the transition to phase 2 and later on, are conditional. And we've seen oftentimes senior Israeli officials, whether from the military level or the political level, linking any broader easing to political demand. For example, disarmament of Hamas, which means humanitarian access are being treated more of a leverage rather than a standalone obligation. There's also the mechanism employed by the Israeli military at the crossings, the restrictions that ends up into the often delay, the reduction in the amount of much needed supplies into the Gaza Strip, whether to the hospital, whether the fuel that is needed to keep the hospital running or other basic critical infrastructure across the strip. There is always a gap between, this is for our viewers, between what the diplomatic language is and what is happening on the ground. And we've seen this not just this time, the period of the ceasefire, but over the course of the past 2 years while the genocide was still active. It is still active by placing these restrictions on people and restriction on much of the needed supplies coming to the Gaza Strip. And there is one important thing, and sadly enough, it is being deployed by the Israeli military, which is the weaponization of aid, weaponization of food, and used as a weapon against a starved population here in need, in dire need of this ease to happen. But it is not happening despite the talks and diplomacy of ceasefire and the reopening of the crossing.
All right, Hani Mahmoud for us there in Gaza. And from the Gaza Strip, we go to the
Don't miss out. Get the full picture. Subscribe to Al Jazeera for reliable news, expert insight. Like, share, stay ahead.